Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Abby, and today, as you can probably tell from the title, I'm going to be doing some propagating with you. So I have been asked quite a lot recently how to propagate, and the reason is because it's spring and our plants are starting to flourish, and now is a really good time to propagate. And I have to say, I've been doing it all year, like 2020. So I was doing it in winter, and the reason being is because I have a grow light on the shelf, so I was almost mimicking the environment the plants need to be able to be successful when they are cut from a mother plant and then propagated. So I'm going to show you how I take my cuttings, and I'm going to be doing a few different plants as well, so different kind of like methods and different ways to cut, but I'm also going to be showing you what I'm currently propagating at the moment. So I'll start with what I'm currently propagating at the moment. I recently cut my elbow Syngonium. This was a wishlist plant and I loved it. I had its own problems, but I did love it, and it was a plant that was like one growth point, so it was like one long stem, and it's not my preferred way of it looking. It was amazing. It was outgrowing its moss pole. It was growing really quickly, and I wanted a fuller plant. So rather than that just one stem, I wanted like a proper plant. So I made multiple cuttings. I made cuttings, the top cuttings, and then I made all the way down until I left like 4 leaves left. And the reason being is because I wanted to take it down to where I was comfortable with the plant, like being in height wise, but also knowing that what I've got would fill it out when I eventually repotted it back into the same plant. So with this one, with it being an elbow Syngonium, there were a few leaves that were 100% white, and we know that they won't survive. So they did fall off. And there were a few where it was literally just the node. There was no roots, no leaf or anything. So I am propagating those as well, and they're currently going, one's going really well and one is slower. But I also have these top cuttings here, which I'll show you. So these have literally just been cut, I would say about a week ago. So they are really new to the water that they're in. This one you'll see, it's literally just the one leaf, and the kind of aerial roots haven't really activated, but just below it you've got a tiny little root there, but that's a bit of a slower grower, which is fine. It can grow in its own time, but it's good to know that it's working. And then we've got this one, which is the top cutting. So I've got another 100% white leaf here, which is annoying, but it's okay. But yeah, look at these roots. These roots literally developed in the week that it's been in the water. And I wouldn't even say it's been a week. Yeah, I'd say it's been under a week, and they've grown so quickly. So you can see those aerial roots that they were there, the darker ones. These water roots, the bright white ones, have grown out of there. And then one of them has grown out of kind of like a hidden one that we didn't really see. It was kind of behind the new growth point. So that's really exciting. So that's really exciting. And I'm just going to allow that to have roots for, I would say, I'm going to wait until they probably double again. So maybe in another week's time, and then I'll pot it up. But that is a really, really quick turnaround. Sometimes you can be waiting for your roots to establish for months. Like, it all depends on the environment and depends on the plant as well. So don't beat yourself up if you're not seeing anything. Which leads me on to why I like water propagating. So I only propagate in water. I've never been really successful with moss, and I haven't really been with perlite. So I do enjoy water propagating. It's my preferred way of doing it, but it's also, I find it really interesting as well. So if this was in moss, you couldn't really see the roots so much without like pulling it out and disturbing them. But with water, you can check how things are going. You can see what's going on. If there were any signs of like rot or anything, you could catch it quickly because you can see what's going on. And I just prefer it that way. I think it looks really cute in a little bottle. So when it does come to water propagating, you're going to want to put them in brighter lights than you naturally would, because obviously the plant is going to need the energy to push out new roots. So it doesn't have a root system already. It's going to need to grow that. So I always make sure they're in like a better lighting conditions. So if my plant was on the back shelf here, I'd take it closer to the window, or this one, for example, is on my grow light shelf. So with that same Syngonium, like I said, there were points on the plant where there was a node, but there was no leaves. So I don't throw them away because that is so silly and such a waste. These are now called, well, they've probably always been called this, but they're known as wet sticks. So it's literally just a stick, no leaves and no roots. And this is my jar of wet sticks, and there's multiple in here. And I'll take them out and I'll show you what I've got in here. Okay, I'm not going to show you them all because we'd be here forever, but this is my philodendron lichens. So it is tiny. Let me put that down. So it is tiny, and you can see I've literally just, where I cut, rather than waste the node, I put it in water, and you can see it's starting to, you know, get some leaves there, which is really, really exciting. And I just let these stay in water for as long as like the roots are established enough to be able to survive in soil. With that said though, when I do cut, I cut and give myself as much space as I can either side of the node. So this is the node, and also where the roots would come out, and also where the new leaf would come out. I would give myself as much space either side as I physically can with that plant, because if there is rot there, you can cut it away. And an example of that is, you can see this yellow bit here. That yellow bit is rot. You see how squidgy it is? So I will cut that away and just pop it back in. But I know that it's not going to compromise this bit because it's so far away from the node. If that rot does go over the node, then you've just lost your chance with a propagation. So yeah, that's always, I like to just give myself more chance to do that with. So an example of this is the node that was here, like on this plant, would have been about here. And I cut here, so each node has that space either side, like I said. But yeah, this one is my Albosingonium. There was a leaf here originally. It would have been one that was 100% white, so it did die. But you can see there's a new growth point here. And again, that's been in there for like less than a week, and that's already growing. So yeah, that is really exciting, and it's just an example of like, just don't throw these away. Like, obviously this is more of an expensive plant, so I'm hoping that I'd be successful with propagating it. But even with the mycans, like, it was laggy. I didn't want to waste it. If it works, like if you put it in water and you get something from it, a new plant, amazing. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. At least you've tried. So before we go on to actually taking some cuttings, one last thing to note when water propagating, and I keep talking about it, is because it really is my preferred way and it's the only way I do. Sometimes I'll dabble out and try new things, but I always come back to water. But one thing I do is I wait for the roots to be really established. So I would normally say, rule of thumb, depending on the size of the cutting, about 2 to 4 inches long in length of roots. And I'll show you an example of what I mean by needing to wait for it to be longer. Okay, so this is my beautiful Thai constellation. I received this from a Instagram friend, and when she sent it to me, the roots looked fantastic. It looked really healthy. It went through the post and it didn't enjoy it so much. It was a bit meh when it arrived. It didn't like the post, obviously. So I noticed it had some rot and I had to cut it so close. It's literally as close as you can get to where I would then eventually find out I can't use it anymore, because the new leaf that's here is literally going to grow from here. And you could probably say I've cut it a bit too close. But this is more of an experiment now because it's not going too well. And I think it was the stress of it going through the post, like I said, and also change of environment. So the person who I bought it from on Instagram had it in an aquatic like aquarium, so like oxygenated water, which is ideal for it, and her plants always thrive. So she had it in a really good environment, and it's taken a while to acclimatize to mine and also not like it so much. But yeah, you can see on these roots, you see it's like a good length, but that main root, and there were more roots here, but they've dropped off due to rot. That main root looks a bit dodgy. So I'm waiting for these new water roots, these white ones, to grow. And I'm gonna say, I'll see if I can show you, I'm gonna wait until they're about that, you know, so there's quite a meaty amount of like roots there, and then I will pot it up. So yeah, that's just an example of how long I like to wait for the roots to grow. And with that said, when I do come to realizing that they're at a good point now, ready to be potted up into soil, I'll go and do that, but I'll make sure for the first like couple of days or week, I'm ensuring that the soil is more moist than normal. So the transition from being hydro in like full water to soil isn't like a shock on the roots and the plant. So I will pot it up into soil and then I'll give it a good water, and I'll just make sure that's a nice kind of like move and transition over. I know some people, I've never seen people do this, but I know some people have said they put soil into the actual water of the plant where it's propagating. I haven't ever done that. I just find the way I do it relatively simple, easy and successful. So I've never done it that way, but you can apparently do it that way. I just couldn't tell you how successful that would be. I'm gonna stop blabbering on now. I'm actually gonna show you what I'm gonna be cutting today. And yeah, fingers crossed these will go really well. I'm sure they will. It's that good time of year and these plants on the shelf seem to love it, so I'm sure they'll be absolutely fine. So I have my clean scissors here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna take some cuttings now. I just ignore the fern, like always on my hair. It really bugs me, but growing. I want to take some cuttings of this, and this is a Hoya Memoria. I forgot the name there. It's a Hoya Memoria, and I want to take some cuttings from this, but I don't know where to cut because there's peduncles at the ends of them, and that's naturally where I'd want to cut. So I think I will have to do a little digging. But yeah, this is my Hoya Memoria. I just love the way it looks, and I just think I wanted to take some cuttings of these kind of like sun-stressed smaller ones and yeah, just see how it gets on. So I have just made cuts on my Hoya and I didn't press record, so I'm just going to talk you through what I did. I took a cutting from that Hoya Memoria that I was talking about. I've basically taken a cutting here, and those tiny little bumps that you can see on the back of, you see it? Those tiny bumps here, they're called nodes. So that is where your roots will form. I did take another cutting, a tiny one, because it was adorable. But with the younger plants or the younger leaves, you tend not to be able to see the nodes as much in my experience. So I've cut this at the lowest point I could. And if there are no like hidden nodes here, or nodes that I can't see to my eye, then I need to make sure the water just goes above here, just because that's where you can see your aerial roots there. That's where the roots will come. So that one's a bit more of a tricky hit and miss one, whereas this one will be absolutely fine because you've got nodes here, you've got one here, and yeah, that will be absolutely fine. So onto this one. What I was saying was this has got multiple growth points, and I tend not to want to cut where there's new leaves coming through. I find that because if I was to cut this and then there's a new leaf coming through here, it could potentially compromise the new leaf. So I need to find a point where there's no new leaves coming through, and then I need to make my cut, which is kind of difficult because it's growing like crazy. So I like this one, but I don't want to cut here because I really like this leaf. So I don't want to cut that one. So I might cut just above it. So I'll cut here. Okay, so this is the cutting I just took. It's very pretty. I didn't even see that, so I'm kind of gutted. But where the roots will grow is out of this bump here. Can you see? So that bump is where your roots will grow. And like I said before, I like to make sure I'm giving it some stem, just in case rot forms, or I don't know, there's more chance of saving it if it kind of like rot does form. And what I'll do now is I'll leave this to callus over, so dry out at the end, to help prevent any rot, and then I'll just pop it in water. So next up is my Pothos Enjoy. These are so easy to propagate, like the easiest thing. Just Pothos in general, because they actually tell you where to cut. So I'll take it out of my overly large cover pot. So yeah, this isn't a really fast grower. I've got another one which is a fast grower, but this one is a bit of a slower grower, which is fine. It's just slower growing. But yeah, it's really beautiful, and where I say it's really, really easy to know where to cut is because you can see all these bumps down here. These are all nodes, and this is where your roots will form from. So I'm just deciding where I want to cut. I quite like that trailing vibe it's got going on. So I might cut from the back of it because this sits on my shelf at the top. So yeah, I might cut this part. So you can see at every leaf here, you've got a node. So you've got one. I'm so bad. I honestly apologize for how bad I am. You can see you've got a node here, which is, because it's a newer part of the plant, it's kind of like not as developed, but you've got one here, here, and here. So I'm going to cut just, and this is a case with all pothos really, I'm going to cut just above the last leaf where I want to leave on the plant, because then I will be taking all of this cutting, leaving some stem in case we unfortunately have some rot, and then it would sit in the water a lot easier. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that there. Here we go. So this is my cutting. This will literally sit in water up to here, and then the new roots will form out of these little bumps here. So literally, I don't know what I'm doing. They will basically form out of these tiny little brown bumps, and that will eventually grow its own roots, and then I can either pop it back in that to make it look fuller, although that makes no sense because I've just taken it from there, or I can give it away to a friend or do a swap with that. So this is my mother pothos. I've had this for years, and it would normally trail right down to the floor and it would climb up here, but I propagated it so much last year and recently that it's kind of like slowing down a bit. You can see my trash there, ignore that. So every time you take a cutting, and I have lots of examples to show you. So I took a cutting here, I don't know when it was, it could have been a long time ago, and it's grown out here from a different part of the plant, you see. So I took my cutting here and it pushed out all of this from a different part. Another example of this is I took a cutting here and it's grown out from the side. So with that said, you can cut a plant and propagate it, and it will also make the mother plant grow out from a different way, and it will make the plant look a lot bushier and fuller rather than laggy, which I think is genius, and I just think it's brilliant because I love these pothos when they look so big. So yeah, just bear that in mind as well. So if you want a plant that does look a bit bigger, cut it and it will start sprouting from another direction. There's an example of it there as well. You see? So that's it for the video. I really hope you enjoyed it and I hope you found that helpful. I showed you 3 different types of plants and how to propagate them. But the main thing to take away from this video is make sure you have a node, because if you don't have a node, you won't have roots and your plant won't survive. So if you have any questions about this or you're unsure about things, just write them in the comment section down below and I'll help you there. And if other people have questions and you see their questions and you know the answer to them, go ahead and help the community understand how to propagate your plants. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, depending on how you feel, but I hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on my next one. Bye.